Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here at the dialogue here in Berlin. We're going to talk about something that I think maybe we've heard a little bit about over the last couple of months, which is AI. And hopefully in this discussion, we can kind of demystify a little bit what this means concretely for businesses. How is this going to change the way that we do business? What are the possibilities? What is the potential? What are the risks involved with that? And to that end, we've assembled a very interesting panel to have that discussion. I'd like to invite first Matt Brittin, who is the president of Google for EMEA, to kind of frame the conversation for us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's a treat to be here in such a sunny setting, and it puts me in mind of a lunch I had in Italy in a similar sunny day, and we were talking about technology in the form of a fork. And I was sitting with an Italian policymaker, and she said to me, you know, this fork, Matt, is technology. And it had a beautiful little bit of carbonara on the end of it. And she said, you know, I can use the fork to eat this lovely meal, or I can stab you in the hand. And I thought I'd upset her, but what she meant was, you know, we harness technology for good. We don't ban forks, but we have consequences for people who misuse them. And I think it's a useful frame of reference to thinking about this moment. The technology is much more advanced than the fork, but some of the issues are the same. And I'm going to try and cover some of the issues and also the opportunities of AI, if I may. I think I've got some pictures as well, but who knows where they'll show up. Let's assume they will. Let me start by the context, though. I think it's important to acknowledge, you know, we're in this moment that seems to many of us to be a perma-crisis, whether it's recovering from the pandemic, the climate crisis, the horrific and ongoing war in the Ukraine, the economic situation that we find ourselves in, and the increasing divisions within and across countries and societies. And I think one of the things that inspires me to work in this area every day is that all of these challenges can be addressed to some extent using this leading edge technology. And I'll explain a little bit as to why I think that's so important. If we harness AI for good, we can make a big difference to some of these really important challenges. Go back to the beginning of the web. It was 1989. I was at university. I'm quite old. And the web was invented in a memo Tim Berners-Lee wrote in 1989. That was the year I graduated. For the last 20 years, I've worked in jobs that have completely depended on that invention. So how do you prepare yourselves and educate yourselves for something that isn't invented yet? Well, the pace of innovation is getting faster. And if you think about it, that was maybe one of the first big technical revolutions in our lifetimes. So the second, I would argue, is the advent of the entire internet in your pocket, democratizing access across the world. Google, actually this week, celebrating our 25th birthday. Who knew that we get to 25? And our founders started out in the year it was founded with a mission to organize the world's information and make it accessible and useful for everyone. And yet at that time, less than 4% of people on the planet were online. Less than 4%. And everybody was using dial-up. Some people here don't even know what dial-up was, but it was lousy. And so that revolution, and then the mobile internet, and now the AI revolution, I think a third big revolution, arguably this one will be bigger than the others in terms of the potential beneficial impact it can have. But it's not all new. I should make the point that, you know, AI has been around and is around us in lots of forms. It's not all about chatbots. So whether it's autopilot or whether it is anti-lock braking, forms of AI used to do those things today, or everyday products like Google Maps, Translate, which is actually, Google Translate's my favorite product. 150 billion words a day are translated. The most common phrases, how are you, thank you, and I love you. Technology allowing us to be more human and build bridges. And it's Google Translate, actually, that led to some of the technical breakthroughs that are enabling large language models. And we'll come on and talk about those as well. So think about it from Google reflecting on 25 years. This moment's a really important one, from organizing the world's information to providing tools that help people with productivity, with creativity, and actually with intelligence itself. But it's hot, right? AI is hot, as you just commented, Oliver. And look at what, you know, Germans have been looking at AI a lot, and 3 times as much this year as last year, and chatbots are being discussed everywhere in their impact. But that's not the only aspect of AI. One of the most important reasons we've been investing for years in AI is the scientific breakthroughs that could be possible. 1 in 8 women in their lifetimes are affected by breast cancer. And we're working with the health service, actually in the UK, we have digitized and learned from mammograms, cancer scans of breasts, and trained an AI to be as good as a clinician in diagnosing the signs of cancer. This means the clinicians can focus where they can make the biggest difference, and it can give you speedier results and open up access to many, many more people. Good example of how AI can complement people, help us to be more productive, and get better outcomes for patients. So that's an example from the field of science. Last week we published, again from our European team, Google DeepMind, a paper on something called alpha missense, which is about mutations in genes, which can lead to some huge breakthroughs. You may have seen also AlphaFold, where our team at DeepMind, again, were able to identify the 3D structures of proteins. Now, this is a field that not everybody's into, but as I understand it, it would take a PhD student an entire 5-year PhD to, through inspection, identify the 3D structure of one protein. So 5 years, one protein by one PhD student. And AlphaFold, using AI, which is about spotting patterns, making predictions, and learning, was able to model all 200 million proteins known to science in 1 year. So that's 1 billion years of PhD advancement in 1 year. We've made that available free for every researcher in the world, advancing disease research and drug discovery. So it's not all about chatbots. There are some big advances there. I could talk longer. I don't have time about sustainability and some of the impact it can have there. Energy, working on nuclear fusion and stabilizing fusion reactions that could lead to abundant free energy. So there's real promise from this technology. And companies are using it every day as well. A lovely German example here with our friends at Lufthansa. They fly 340,000 passengers on 2,600 flights every day. Imagine what a headache it is when something goes slightly wrong or gets slightly delayed. So working with Google Cloud, apparently that happens from time to time. Working with Google Cloud, they were able to ingest a whole array of data, weather, flight, location, passenger information, and to make recommendations that can help them deal with scheduling and disruption and rerouting and efficiency and so on. So companies are starting to take advantage of these things too. And we want to make sure that it's not just big scientific breakthroughs, that we can give smarter tools to everyone. So I mentioned Google Maps. Hopefully people are familiar with that. In the last year, we've introduced eco-friendly routing. Using AI, we suggest to you the route that is most fuel efficient, and we'll show you the time of that versus an alternative if there's a significant time gap in between the two. And we've estimated that's already saved over 1.2 million metric tons of CO2 emissions just by people having that kind of choice available to them in the moment that they need it. And then, of course, well, chatbots and what you've seen. So we've launched Bard. At Google, we've taken a rather more thoughtful approach to where and how and when we launch some of these products, because we can see both the benefits, but also some of the potential misuses. I'm sure we'll talk about both of those on the panel. That's something that's being played with by people and learning and trying to figure out how to make this kind of technology really useful to everyone. But it's not just in the chatbot. You want the technology to show up where you're working. So in Gmail, there's now a feature, Help Me Write. So actually compose an email that does this. In Google Docs, help me write. I don't want a blank sheet. I want an introduction to this event. Give me a draft. And so these tools are giving people a first draft, giving them 2 or 3 steps along the creative journey, not substituting for the people, but it's a tool that gets you started and gets you moving creatively. Intelligence where you need it. And I think the other thing to say is there's a huge opportunity economically and importantly for Europe here as well. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. When you look at the independent research, just a couple of stats here, AI could generate 1.2 trillion euros for the European economy, saving a typical worker 70 hours a year, productive time that could be put into things that only humans can do. So there's huge economic opportunity if we harness this technology well. I'll end with the way in which we're thinking about this at Google. One, we need to be bold. The headlines about the fears of AI write themselves. And they literally write themselves these days, right? But actually making sure we can see the benefits in these kinds of examples and we're prepared to be innovative together to harness the opportunities is really, really important. I've given you a range of examples there. Second one, my fork example, being responsible with the technology. So we've been working on this for years. We published our AI principles about how we think about this, how do we deal with the challenges. We published tools to help people with things like bias in data sets and so on. It's a team sport, this kind of innovation. Team support both in innovation, but also in terms of how we think about responsibility. In Germany, we have our Safety Engineering Center in Munich, and it's it was the first in the world, actually, and we have several now in Europe, which are looking at how do we make sure we're responsible about the use of this kind of technology. Again, I'm sure we'll talk more about that as well. And doing this together, this is something where companies, governments, communities absolutely need to work together to define the new rules of the road of how we want to work on these things, whether it's investing in R&D, understanding the potential misuses and tackling those through law and codes of practice and consequences, and also preparing our economies and our societies for this technology to be here. What's it going to do to the world of work? Likely it's going to create a lot more jobs, but some jobs will be disrupted. Most jobs will see a change in how we do things. We need to prepare people for those changes as well. And so I would end with that thought, really it is up to us. It's up to people in this room and others to think about how we want the world to be, to harness the benefits, to be responsible, and to work together to land it all. Thank you.
With artificial intelligence, we have the opportunity to do things that matter on an even larger scale. It's already powering millions of businesses, transforming the global economy. It could increase the EU economy by 1.2 trillion euros and save the average worker over 70 hours a year. So we're leading the way boldly, responsibly, and together, integrating AI into our solutions to make them even more helpful. We're helping businesses become more efficient and productive. We're also providing innovative ways for workers to learn new skills. And we're helping consumers make more sustainable choices. These are just some of the ways we're making AI more helpful. Together, we can unlock its full potential as an engine of productivity and economic growth that benefits us all.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for teeing up the conversation here. Just a quick message on format here. We'll have a bit of time for Q&A at the end, so if you have any ideas or thoughts, feel free to jot them down and see the gentleman right there, and he'll have a microphone for you, and we can make this a little more interactive. I thought I'd start because we are, after all, in the native land of Goethe, who wrote a great many things, one of which is particularly apt, I think, in illustrating the power and the risks of AI, which is the sorcerer's apprentice, right? Sorcerer goes out, the apprentice is left behind. He doesn't want to do the menial task he's been left. He enchants the broomstick to move water back and forth. Pretty soon, it's out of control. Everything is flooded, multiplying terribly. Sorcerer comes back, sorts it out. AI, we don't have a sorcerer, right? We are the sort of sorcerers. We're generating this sort of as we go. And again, it's very easy to have a lot of mystical views on what AI is and how exactly we use it. So I hope that here we can help sort of demystify that and talk about the concrete examples. So I'd like to start with kind of what excites you most about AI. And concretely, I'll start with you, Glenn. Where do you see AI working in your business, the business that you're running today?
Well, and I am the CEO of Booking.com, a travel company.
I should mention that Glenn Fogel is the CEO of Booking.com. Matt Brittin is the president of Google for EMEA.
Right.
Let me just say, Denis Terrien is the executive vice president and CEO of Southern Europe for Salesforce, and Ursula Owusu-Ekuful is the minister of communication and digitalization for the Republic of Ghana. Forgive me, Glenn.
No problem. So, look, we've all been using AI for a very long time. Matt just mentioned there's a lot of AI that's been happening for, going way back. I mean, AI really started in the 50s thinking about it, but it didn't become a big news item for a lot of people until ChatGPT. We at our company, though, have been using AI for a very long time, machine learning, to come up with what type of property should we show to somebody when they're looking for a hotel. That's AI. When somebody is thinking about, I want to take a flight, which one? We help present it in that order by AI. When they go to pay for something, their credit card, they put it in. We're using AI to determine whether or not that could be fraud or not. When we decide to give somebody a discount for their flight or their hotel, we do that because of AI, or we don't give them a discount because of AI. These things there's so many things, but it's this new thing, ChatGPT came out, and everybody says, oh my God, the world has changed tremendously. And I just like everybody to know that, and this is really important, Google could have come out sooner. They had large language models. They could have done this, but thinking responsibly, trying to make sure this is done the right way, they were actually holding back. And that's one of the things about AI and your sorcerer's apprentice idea of all these new things that are coming out. And do we just put it out to the world and see what happens and hope for the best? Or do we come up with some sort of regulatory framework that will hold it back? Now, some stuff's not that dangerous. So, for example, we came out with some new things. We have a thing, if you want to discover where to go, we have, we call it our trip advisor type thing. It's our travel advisor that comes onto booking.com, and you type in, I want to go somewhere, and then we'll come back, well, give it, do you want to go to the beach? And it goes back and forth, and we'll come up with an itinerary and suggestions. It's great. Or if somebody wants to find out more information about a property when they're just about to pay, chat AI is going back up to the property and giving them more information. Most commonly asked question is, can I bring my dog? Very, very, very interesting thing. Also, then you go back and you say yes, and the next question many times is something like, well, my dog is very big, and this helps out. So it's a great thing. But the issue is much more important, and these are the things that Matt was just talking about. Great possibilities. That issue about helping to do a radiologist's job instead, maybe more accurate, doesn't, let's face it, the AI never gets tired, never has a hangover, never looks away, isn't angry at its spouse, right? On the other hand, though, what happens to the radiologist's jobs?
Yeah.
Right? And that can be expanded throughout the world.
Well,
So
that'll be kind of where we go with this. And Ursula, you come at this at a slightly different angle. So I'm curious to know for you what you think are the kind of the great promise concretely. Where do you see the applications for Ghana?
Thank you very much. And like everyone, we're all excited about the promise that AI offers in improved efficiencies and taking away the mundane task and freeing us to do the more important things that we do. And in government, for us, public sector efficiency can be enhanced. Citizen-to-government engagement can also be improved. We can have more tools in healthcare, as you've indicated, in commerce. In education is becoming a big thing with all its challenges as well. But one thing that as policymakers we are concerned about is that we're not opening up the conversation. And so it's as if the techies, the industry players who are taking the benefit of it, who are developing it, the academics are talking to themselves and leaving the people whose lives will be impacted or enhanced with this technology behind. I think we need to broaden the conversation and allay the fears of people who think machines are taking over the world, and the stuff of science fiction is now becoming reality. We thought this would happen in movies, but it is happening now. But when you drill down to the fact that AI has been around for a long time, has eased the things that we do, autopilots, even the impact it had in advancing medical vaccine research and taking vaccines to market during COVID was something that we gloss over it, but it would have taken us much, much longer to develop many of these vaccines without machine learning, AI, and biotechnology. And so we've used it. It's helped us. But we need to, like you're saying, demystify it and let people see that, like all technology, it can be used for good, or it can be used for evil. And we need to decide which side we're going to veer on. And we need to put in measures to protect all of us from it. And that's why we need to broaden this conversation.
So speak to the catastrophizers among us for a moment. What is your kind of big fear on the risks there?
It's going to take away people's jobs. That's the one thing that's uppermost in our minds. And a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with some policymakers and academics, and the policymakers were adamant that there's no way we're going to allow this to happen. I said, look, we said the same thing about the internet, even televisions, computers are going to take away people's jobs. We're here. It's going to create even more jobs. But we need to start upskilling and reskilling now.
Yeah, and I'd like to get into that a little bit later. Denis, for you, when you go around Europe and talk to your clients, to companies, what are they asking you about AI? What is the most asked question for you? What do they think that they can gain from the technology?
I like the way that we split AI and generative AI, the way you did it. You know, at Salesforce, we've had AI for the last 7 years already. And what we can see are customers that are using Salesforce solution with AI have about a 30% increase in productivity, and they can have to reinvest that into revenues. So AI, it's based on data, and in order to have a right prediction, then you need to have the right data. So the topic that we talk the most with CEOs is, how can I trust the data I'm making the decision on? And this is the #1 topic that we have to look at.
So what do you tell them?
For us, AI has to be grounded in trust. And if we are able to have trusted data, manage them well, with very good compliance, then it can help in terms of giving more trust for the consumers to use AI.
And Matt, you've had a sort of storied career across a great many different industries, and so you probably have a perspective now, being at Google, how this sort of technology can be deployed across industries. Give us a bit of a flavor. You've worked in journalism and finance, all these sorts of things.
Well, I think on the generative AI side, as Glenn says, I think we're very early, but certainly the way I see it, and when people are using, Duet AI, which is in Google Workspace, you open a doc and you get a draft of something, with a few short words in a prompt. So I think we're at the beginning. To go to what Minister Ursula was saying, though, I think it's important for us to think about what's going to happen to jobs in the economy. And you can look historically, the beginning of the 20th century, we were all farmers. By the end of the 20th century, you had hairdressers and hedge fund managers, right? So what typically happens is a whole raft of new jobs are created. Web designers, search marketing people, digital people, whatever. Mobile phone revolution, you've got people selling phones all over the world that, when they were first invented, we thought it was just for the super rich. So new jobs will be created. We don't know what they will be yet. Most jobs, the smart research suggests, most jobs will see a change in how we do tasks within jobs, just like I outlined. Technical jobs can be 2, jobs in health, but so people will be more productive, and the evidence actually in the science work we've done has been, you need just as many clinicians, but they can focus on the early diagnosis and actions and much better outcomes. So it's the machines and the people together that make the difference. But then some jobs will undoubtedly go away, the rate of which we don't know, and that's where we need to focus our attention.
But sort of one difference, I think, is we have had a lot of revolutions in the way that we do things that have displaced jobs in the past, whether it's the loom or, whatever have you. The difference here, to me, it seems, is speed. Yeah. It's the speed at which this happens and the speed at which people get displaced, don't retrain. This is sort of light speed.
Well, I don't think it's light speed, but it is faster probably than the agricultural revolution.
Right.
So it's somewhere between the two. I think, when I took this job at Google, which is about 8 years ago, we looked at a report from the EU that said